I clap, you do an intro.
Welcome back, skating fans, to another GSN news show. We've been slacking a little bit, but we're going to start to get these things going, even if Vic and I are in separate places. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about because the season is coming up this weekend with the Short Track World Tour. Not the Short Track World Cups. The long track season, a lot of the big end races are happening, trials coming right up. So yeah, a lot of exciting things.
Yeah, lots of news. One thing we're going to do differently today is that Mitch and I have been separated for a couple of days. It's been some weddings, not Mitch's, or mine. And I've been on an altitude training camp. So we have not discussed any of the topics. So what we did was that each of us wrote down 6 things that we think are the biggest news in the world of skating.
Yep.
And we're just going to discuss that together with you guys right now.
Yeah, so this should be fun. I mean, the first topic obviously is an easy one. We need to discuss the Short Track World Tour and really how we feel about the different setup. I think it's really cool, like we discussed before, that they are back to a 500, 1,000, and a 1,500, yes. And everybody can skate, or a skater can race all 3 of those, which I think is great. That's something we thought was silly about short track before, where you're only racing half the field. Now it's everybody, so I think the intensity is going to be really high. Those finals are going to be similar names time after time, and I think that is better. We're going to get the best races out there.
We prefer having the strategy in the actual races and not which distances to compete at.
Right. That's also, as the girls talked about before, the point system before was so silly that like you could pick and choose which random ones you're dropping or whatever the case was.
Base your participation on who's not, like who does or who doesn't skating.
Gotta race. And with the World Tour, you've seen the logos. We'll have to show them on the screen here, but what are your thoughts?
Got dragons battling Vikings and birds. I think we talked about it before. We are big fans of trying to make it more of a show.
Right.
Like we established that.
100%.
The question is this the best way to make it kind of a show? These, skin suits of like specific character, and then the ISU has handed them each their little spirit animal or logo
or spirit thing.
Yeah,
some of them aren't even animals. Some are just stars. I mean, I don't dislike the idea of, again, making it more showy and some sort of different thing than countries. Maybe somebody from Denmark, let's say, could get behind cheering for the U.S. skaters more because they're like into the team name. Like
we're seeing this from American
maybe it
sports.
shifts just exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe it shifts just a little bit, and people are like fans of that team and less so of that country.
Yeah,
total shot in the dark there, but maybe it's something that could work. The logos themselves, some of them are all right. I don't understand why all of them have the little circle at the bottom here. With the
like
head sticking out. But like when you look at like the NFL or other pro teams, their logos, there's not like a cookie cutter shape that every single one is. But hey, we'll see.
We're about to find out, how it's gonna work. I think it's pretty cool how much they've done, the ISU, on their social media, making use of these things.
Yeah.
So it's not just we'll print this on your suit, but they have these like the lions, the dragons, the whatever. Like they make it a little more.
And I think the ISU's done a better job this year marketing the World Tour and showing a little bit about each place. Not that all of the fun facts about those areas were the most interesting, but at least there's a good attempt at like you're learning about the area that they're going to race in.
Yeah, making it more than just the race, or making more of a show out of it is definitely cool. Now, the short track thing, we don't really know who the favorite's going to be.
Yeah, especially on the men's side, right? Like last year, it was kind of all over the place with who was the very best. Danjino was up there. A couple of the Korean guys are always going to be good, but I feel like it was not just there's no victor on at the moment, right? There's not just this one guy that is just going to crush everybody.
Like you can name 10 different people that could be on the podium at the first World Cup and wouldn't be like, wow, didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So should be fun to watch those ones. All the relays, of course, always exciting. That Chinese team is good. The women's side, though, I think we have a better idea of who our top few are. But also, do we know whether or not Suzanne is actually going to be short tracking full time? Ariana Fontana is seemingly more long track than short track at the moment, but it does sound like she's also planning to skate the short track World Cups.
And how are they going to do?
Maybe not all of them, but
after skating at least Schulting will have to skate trials. We know Ari is also in Insel right now, having to skate trials. And how's that going to play out for them? Like, it's a lot of traveling.
Yeah, should be interesting to see. The training is also probably a little bit different than they're used to.
They're just going to time trial the 1500 going back to short track.
Well, yeah, the last we heard is Ari is planning to race a lot of World Cups, the combo of short track and long track. So that'll be fun. You know, we know Kristen is going to be a monster, of course.
We've seen her on the ice here in Salt Lake. Pretty good. So she's definitely a contender. That's one thing we can confirm. The Canadians have a high level. We saw Florence Brunel win their trials, which is not easy when you have Kim Boutin and Courtney Saul. That's like that kind of self-explained. That's a good relay team as well.
Right. And we were talking too that it would be nice if the ISU did a better job of showing where to watch those other trials, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, we know on YouTube it's easy to find the US trials and it's easy to find the Canadian trials, but to find Korea, Japan, the Dutch, like, why can't we, easily see those? Yeah. I think a platform to show all that would be very nice to have. Yeah. That's it for short track. I think that's pretty good for short track.
That was enough. Moving on to long track news. The first thing I assume we both wrote on our list.
Yep.
We have a new Niels fan poll.
This kid is phenomenal. Metodej
Metodej. Yeah.
From Czechia.
The fastest 5K skater in the world for the season so far.
Pretty crazy. Now, my next topic will also talk about this Insel races, but Metodej is crushing it, and also 6:15 at this time of year. I don't care where you are, is flying. Yeah, and then also Timothy was right behind him too, another 6:15. So, what do you think's going on?
I mean, that's why. Obviously, we can determine Insel is not slow. Right. They are racing in quads. It's halfway altitude, and I have a good feeling it's pretty fast. They're looking at all the different times. It is still incredible. I mean, Giotto skated the weekend before a 6:19, the reigning 10K world champion. Metodej was only 2 seconds behind him, and this weekend he, obliterated that time.
Yeah, pretty good. Now, I don't know if he is even going to race World Cups yet, right?
He is still a junior. We should probably establish that.
The senior World Cups are like a question mark. Yeah. Now, we would hope so, but I had heard something that he might not actually race them yet. Which is crazy to me. I mean, if you can start winning them, you might as well go.
I mean, you better go to Heerenveen or Calgary to just take that junior world record.
Right, exactly. Or Milwaukee might be fast too.
He can probably do it anywhere.
But yeah, he's cooking already, and he just came off of a really impressive junior world inlines.
Won 5 golds.
Yeah, even one of them he fell and still won the race. So
by a lot,
still by a lot.
That's incredible.
So he's a pretty good skater.
Yeah. That's going to be very interesting. I do think, based on the things we already seen this year, in the men's long distance, we are going to see the same 4 or 5 people that we saw last year. We've seen Giotto, Timothy, and Sander Eitram skating a 6:19 in Stavanger, which I think is pretty crazy because second place was Helgier Ingebroden, previously a medal at the Olympics in the 5K. He was 11 seconds behind him.
Wow, 6:19 in Stavanger is not slow.
Regardless of conditions.
I can't imagine that they had a crazy big quad and perfect ice. Norway seems to not care about their ice quality at all until it's a World Cup, and then it's standard.
Yeah, that's all right. And you add Patrick. He hasn't skated any 5Ks yet, Patrick Rose, but he did a 3:40 3K at NK Club Championships.
He did get beat though.
Yes, by Marcel Bosker.
Wow, that's a big one because 3K feels like it would be Patrick's main event.
If anything, he's better in the 15.
Not that Bosker is bad at either one, but it does seem like Patrick would be the better 3K skater by a few seconds, and not the case. Now, we were talking about these Insel races with Metodej and company. And obviously the ice was crazy fast. Like, we don't know what the air pressure was. I didn't look. What else could it be that's making the ice so fast? But of all of the different factors, whether it is the ice quality, air pressure,
air temperature,
a taper, or quads, what do you think is the most impactful of all those?
That's a good question.
Put you on the spot on
now I'm trying to think, like, where would I... Obviously, I care most about the 5K, 10K. I feel confident saying a quad in a 5K versus a pair, because there's twice as many people warming up, cooling down in the warm-up lane. You can be really lucky and kind of catch your quad. It's a lot easier than catching your pair. I think that gives you 2 to 3.5 seconds, maybe 4 seconds, quad versus pair. I think the air pressure, if you go from one extreme to the other, that can be a handful of seconds, I would say.
Sure.
And I think especially in Insel, same goes here for Salt Lake, the temperature, like colder ice, warmer air, I would also say that can give you another 3 to 4 seconds.
Yep.
You add all that together, that's more than a second per lap.
And then a taper is also...
And a taper,
Throw that in. I think for me, in Salt Lake City, the ice quality might be the most impactful, because when we see... I mean, you just know, as soon as a World Cup happens and they bring that ice down...
It's different.
You step on it and feel like you just went forward. And as we saw last year with Jordan... setting a world record in the 1,000 with high air pressure, like very high air pressure.
That was nice,
It seems like the ice quality here could be the fastest. Now, in Milwaukee, where the ice quality is always good, it's just whether or not he's got the fans going. And then air pressure, same thing with Heerenveen. That air pressure seems to make a huge difference at a couple of those rinks. But more studies need to be done on
for sure.
which factors seem to be the most important.
And I also think it depends a lot on the distance.
For sure.
10K is the best example. The 3 or 4 fastest 10Ks ever skated. That was Niels van der Poel. He was in his own league, but he skated those in what was that? Beijing, Heerenveen, even one of them in Stavanger. So I think obviously more air is nicer for longer distances. Where at 500 meter you can basically hold your breath and you would just want to, go as fast as you possibly can. And I also think that's why we see, say, the 500 meter times will always be faster in Salt Lake compared to Heerenveen, but we've seen times where Heerenveen can be almost as fast for even 5Ks. And I think Insel is a really good place to do this 3K, 5K thing, because you do have a little more air, but it's not entirely down at sea level. And
and they've historically made great ice. Last year at World All Around, the ice was solid.
2019, same thing.
So it can be good.
I'll fly to Insel in a week and let you know from there.
There we go.
So, correspondent in the field. Now, we looked at those results from Insel. It is an army of French skaters there. Like more than 20 skaters on the results list. And they're not bad. We saw one of the inline skaters in the women's skate I think 40.0 something or 40.1.
Okay.
And just the depth of the field. Arthur Le Bopin, a junior skater, I think junior world championships medalist, also dropping some pretty quick times, under 7 minutes in the 5K, and just we're seeing so many of them. Up in Quebec, another
you knew
6:30.
it. You knew it last year, even before they had their championships. But if the French were to shift onto ice, you said that they probably have the deepest field, maybe besides Colombia, of everybody. So that just shows that they've got the talent. We know that the switch can work very well for plenty of people. So it's not surprising to see these French skaters coming around.
And it's finally the first time to have something organized. I mean, there's been a bunch of good skaters from France, but it's been very like skater by skater kind of. Evan Fernandez, Alexis Quentin, Benjamin Massé. They all been like
one at a time.
It's never been like
and no women. There's been
that's true.
Very few that I can think of that.
But
at least not at World Cups.
That is actually fun. Like this year, I think every single distance record, French national record, has been broken for the women by 3 different skaters. So I mean, that goes to show that they were
wild that they just did not ever make the switch before. I mean, I guess it is they've got to move somewhere to make it happen.
But I could be New Italy.
Yeah,
just a lot of inlines being driven into.
And speaking of the inline crossover, we did see Jason Suttles also skate a
6:29.
Not a bad race there.
That is going to be a team pursuit to watch out for, because Bart Swings is Bart Swings, and then Indra Medard. That weekend prior to this, Jason Suttle 5K, I think he got a top 10 in the Master National League in the Netherlands, which is basically their World Cup qualification. So if you're good enough to hang on to the whole Werfs and basically the pro Dutch marathon
people
teams,
that medal at World Cups,
you can probably hang on to Bart Swings for 8 laps.
And they're my pick. They're my pick.
Yeah, you said this
to medal. I just want to get it back out there
this year,
but no, not. Maybe the World Cup this year. Maybe the World Cup, but I think at the Olympics they are on my podium for the team pursuit, and I'm sticking with it.
What next time?
Let's see here. Thought about predictions for short track, but we already talked about that. The Insel Ice, Laurent Dubreil.
Okay. Monsieur Laurent Dubreil, previous invité on this very channel.
Yes.
Et vous regardez Global Skating Network.
What a guy. But we got to talk about him. They just had the Canadian Long Track Championships, and Laurent won with a very solid time, 34.7 at this point in the year.
Second 34.7. He did want to just casual race the week.
Right. Was that also in Quebec?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So he's skating great, and it's interesting to see that last year he did not skate well in the fall. He had said that he had a back injury or something in the summertime, and so just kind of like limped his way into the season. But by the time World Cups came around, he worked his way into shape. But this year he's already starting off great, and
Where it's gonna finish, yeah.
I would say that the ice is probably a similar standard to where Milwaukee's at the moment for them. So to see a 4.7 from him, we saw J-Boy, Jordan Stolz, go 4.6 in Milwaukee already.
It's gonna be interesting, yeah.
Could have an interesting race throughout most of the season. Now, we know Jordan's pretty damn good when it comes down to World Championships,
Yeah.
but
And ice skating in general.
exciting to see.
Yeah, those two are the most remarkable times we've seen. We've seen a few of the Dutch skaters go into 35.0. We saw a Kazakhstan skater was born in 2002, just skated the 35.0 in Insel.
Wow.
That's impressive.
I was thinking too, okay, you've got Laurent, who told us as well that he only trains once a day because he's a dad. So more
Ted
power,
Gunn said the same thing.
more power to him.
Yeah.
That's great. And then you've got Jordan, who last year and the year before really trained as a distance skater that also sprints, does kind of the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
But they're, for the most part, very, very close.
It's wild, yeah.
In 500s at least. So, yeah, what do you think of, like, how can people train so differently but still end up with very similar results?
I think it mostly goes to show how important technique is in this sport and just being good at skating.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think also Jordan, regardless of all that 5K work, is still super strong. And then, it comes down to their skating prowess is not bad.
Also, a shout out to Dubreil and a couple of these sprinters. I know that's a thing, Mitch. As a coach, is pretty big on that. Whether you're a sprinter, you should know how to skate at least a couple of laps in a row, and vice versa. If you're a distance skater, you should have some speed.
Yep.
Dubreil skated a 1500 meter at their trials in 150. We also saw David Bosa from Italy skate a 1500 meter at their trials in Insel in 155, and we saw Damian Zurich skate a 147.
Yep.
Like, we just saw a lot of these. I mean, same goes for Jenning DeBow.
Yep.
Skated the 1500 meter in 149. Just seeing all of these sprinters still do a 1500 meter and not super narrow it in.
I think it's great. I think something that I wish I had done more of was focus on 1500s. I did like one in the entire last 4 years of skating, and I think that was a big mistake. I think you're going to learn a lot more from skating those distances, and taking them serious when it's the right time, I think, is also really beneficial. Don't shy away from 15s just because you think you're the best at the 500.
Yeah. Well, I have written down a name as my suggestion for skater of the week. Polish girl Masur, a junior B skater, which means you're a child, I think age 16, 17,
Yep.
raced in Insel. That was the weekend before all those crazy fast times. She skated a 39.3, and even more interestingly, she raced that master in Insel. I know it's not World Cup level, but she still raced it against the best Italian seniors, Pelveri and Lola Brigida, and she won that master.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
I think that is crazy to hear that she's a B.
Yeah.
I guess we're hearing the same things on the men's side. But I think the more interesting side of this too is also Ariana Fontana racing against these same Italian ladies who
master
just got
trials.
beat. And we know how good Ari already is on long track. She's skated 4.12 and a 4.12 again in Quebec, here and then Quebec. So I think it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Or is, Mr. Italian coach just going to choose the team independently? What are we going to pick? I mean, do you pick the girl that has 13 Olympic medals at the, on short track in pack racing, or the tried and true on long track in mass starts Paveri, and Lolo.
It is interesting.
Man.
Like master, it's generally such an easy thing in long track to like pick a team because it's time based. There's
Right.
no like, it's all objective except for the master discipline.
Yep.
Or, I mean, there's so many ways to look at this. Like from a coach's or federation's point of view, would you rather want one really fast finisher and then somebody to make sure it's a steady pace? We've seen it from the Dutch at the Olympics, throwing in Gary Heckman as their sprinter, or Koen and Sven Kramer, where Sven would just like set a high pace. Jorrit Bergsmith did the same for Gary Heckman,
Right.
set a high pace, and then you have the fastest flying lap at the end.
Yeah.
Or would you just, put whoever does better at trials in there?
And we even
it's hard.
talked about Lauren Zotto, who did some of them last
perfect-
year.
yeah.
She is not going to win the sprint,
No.
but she can lead out a bunch of laps
And
as
make sure
probably
there's a
their
sprint.
best 5K
Yeah.
skater. So, yeah, that's a tough one to decide
It is
for
interesting.
poor Marketo there.
Also because we haven't seen all of them in racing. Like Lola Brigida coming back from giving birth,
Yep.
Pilveri being out for a season, and Ari having never ever raced a master, but God, she's good at flying laps,
But
and
she's not mad at following.
done some good 3Ks.
We've already seen it.
And I have a feeling she might deal pretty well with the narrow track.
Yeah, not going to be a problem, I'm thinking. So, anyways, not to take away from the Polish girl, but
Yeah.
That brought on a big topic of this Italian team.
Yes.
It's too bad they can't just have more than two. But
In other news, we have some new equipment out there being shown on different Instagram channels. We are full Viking, but we should mention that for the first time in a long time, we've seen other brands than just Mabel's and Viking out there. Mabel's being sort of close, so mostly just Viking. We now see EHS/Staybent. And it's interesting because we've seen a couple of skaters use them. Like I assume most of them are sponsored, but it's still interesting seeing people like Angel Dalaman and Jordan Stoltz using their
and
jig.
Kristen Santos also
Kristen
has
Santos.
the EHS, and
A couple of Norwegian, Björn Magnussen, Henrik Ruge. Yeah, we're seeing more.
And it used to be like they got the rights for the Staybent jig from Cascade, and now they've run with it, and it seems like a pretty solid jig. Haven't used it myself, but again, I think the Staybent jig was really good, and a lot of other jigs are kind of copied off of that. But yeah, interesting to see about the blades too. There's not a lot of skaters on the EHS blades yet, but would like to see people give them a shot and what the differences are. But yeah, almost just seems like as of now it's a copy of Vikings.
And to be fair, Viking has I've been to the Viking facility multiple times. It is massive. We've been talking a little bit about maybe making an episode in the spring from the headquarters of Viking, a little behind the scenes.
Let us know.
Yes, because that would be super cool. They are a little ahead of everybody else in terms of technology, and that could just be really interesting. Learning a little more than just skating on them.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And hey, rubies are starting to sprinkle out there to people. So interesting to see as well, how far along that's going to get. Will rubies take over since they're more like the middle ground of the Viking blades, or will people still stick with the further ends? My feeling is that the women are going to still mostly, I think some still are going to like sapphires or rubies, but I still think most are going to shift towards the icons, just a little bit easier to control. But I think a lot of the men are going to think about those rubies a lot more, especially the longer, mid to long distance men, where maybe they don't have to switch blades, because a lot of them have, right? Go from mass start or 1500 on the sapphires and then switch to icons for 5K, 10K. Maybe the rubies are just the one size fits most.
That is true. Time will show. It's pretty interesting. It's the pre-Olympic season, so I think for a lot of skaters, they made up their mind that at the end of this season, we've found what we're sticking with here.
You stick with it on the Olympic here.
I'd say at World Champs in Hamar, at the end of this season, we'll probably see what is going to be Olympic equipment. This episode's trivia question is:
which world record in history, not current world records, it could be current world records, what's the longest standing speed skating world record? That could be short track or long track, but what is the longest standing, and we're talking about times, world record that has ever been? Some have lasted a long time.
The reason we started talking about this or came up with this trivia question was actually because we were talking about this 5K world record that we assume Metodej has some pretty good chance of beating this season if he decides to race Senior World Cups.
Yeah.
Before him was Sigurd Henriksen, but before him was Howard Berko, and he had that for like 15 years or more.
A long time. And that lasted through Sven.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. Enough said.
That lasted through many other really, really good distance skaters, Patrick Roast as well.
Yeah.
So to see
Nils,
Havard's, and that could be the answer, we'll see. But to last that long is really impressive. So we're talking about juniors or senior world records here. But yeah, write down the answer. On the next episode, we're going to start another giveaway, some sort of Viking gear. We gave away the bike shoes last time, so
There'll
look
be
for
more.
that one.
Yep. That's also an invitation to subscribe to this channel so you'd be notified as that hits your YouTube feed. And also, we invite you to comment below. I personally would love to hear what you think about the World Cup system in short track. Is World Tour with the new animals and
Does it work?
Yeah, it doesn't. What do you think?
Or is it silly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one is it to you? And I think also commenting any other questions you guys have about anything in the realm of speed skating, we'd love to answer that on the next one.
Yeah, and also what Mitch asked me earlier, what do I think makes the biggest difference, and what do we think when it comes to ice, quality? Is that the air pressure? Is it the ice? Is it the quad, the pair, whatnot? I don't know if we're right. That's just based on
That's just our
experience.
feelings.
If there's some skating geeks out there, let us know in the comment what you think.
If you have the stats,
Yeah.
please share it with us. That would be
That's-
amazing.
That is this week's trivia.
Yes.
All
Cool.
right.
Well, yeah, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the GSN News Show.
Yep. Hope you guys had fun.
Catch you next time.